All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Maeve Yoga. I am Elizabeth. Welcome to my kitchen. I put up my Mexican blanket behind me to kind of make sure that the light wasn't too bright behind to where it would mess up, making my face look dark and everything. Yeah. So for this video, we are going to be talking about the three-part breath. For the three-part breath, one thing I always like to talk about is when you're practicing it, you might find that it is easier to do it reclined versus seated versus standing. And the reason why is because a lot of us aren't used to breathing into our bellies and using our diaphragm for the breath. So arguably, the way our anatomy is designed is the diaphragm is actually supposed to do about 80% of the work for when you're breathing. But most of us, especially because we're anxious little creatures, breathe into our upper chest. And so because we breathe into our chest and our shoulders all day long, this diaphragm's not getting the work, and then it's really hard to use the abdomen and allow the belly to move with each breath because we're not used to it. So while you're practicing your three-part breath, if you find like, hey, you're just like, I cannot do this seated, lie down. That'll make it a lot easier because then your entire upper body will relax and you can solely focus on how the body is going to move in different ways without needing to worry about sitting up straight and all of that. So, what else about three-part breath? Also, you'll find that the more you practice three-part breath, you'll find that you'll eventually be able to sit up. You'll be able to do it standing. And then some people can even do it while they're walking or while they're practicing yoga without having to overthink the different aspects of the three-part breath. It just comes more naturally with practice, just like anything else. So that makes complete sense. So we'll go ahead and get started with kind of walking through the different steps of the three-part breath. So the first part of the three-part breath is going to be we're focusing on the chest and the shoulders. So for instance, when you normally are breathing, you might be someone who breathes into their shoulders. You might notice that your chest rises and falls. The shoulders move up and down. And as you breathe, just notice how just the upper body is moving. Try to keep it localized, centralized. Wonderful. All right. And as you continue to breathe, we're now going to shift that into the sides and the ribs. So there's a couple different ways that you can kind of notice if you're breathing into the sides and the ribs. So for instance, if you're not touching your body, you might be able to tell based on muscle activation that you expanded in the ribs and then you contracted. But it might be a little bit more hard to recognize that if you're not used to breathing in that part of the body. So for instance, some things that I like to do when I'm working on this is I like to use a strap. So what I'll do with my strap, I'm going to take these off, is loop it behind me, cross the straps underneath my bust, and then hold them in opposite hands. Now I like to hold pretty close to where the cross happens, but it might just depend on for where you prefer to hold. You might prefer to hold it wider out or closer in like me. It just depends. It won't change how this works. So when you're ready to try out breathing into your sides and your ribs, on the inhale, you're going to try to expand into the strap, and so then your hands are going to come closer together. So for instance, I'm going to start by exhaling fully. And then when you're ready with the inhale, wonderful. And then exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Wonderful. All right. One thing I do really like too about the strap is if you find that you're having a hard time contracting, you can kind of pull the strap a little bit, but for the most part there, I wasn't doing anything other than holding the strap taut. So that way it would actually move and show on camera. But otherwise I wasn't forcing my ribs to do anything. All that movement there with my hands in the strap was done through my muscles. So finally moving on to, another option if you don't actually have a strap, because you know, you might not have one, or you might not feel comfortable using a belt or a scarf or something, like just it might not feel comfortable and it might feel constricting, is to use your hands instead. So what I like to do is place them on the sides of my ribs, pretty much around where the strap was, so under the bust. And then when I'm ready with the inhale, and then exhale, inhale, exhale, one more, and exhale. Wonderful. So with that, you can definitely feel against your hands how your ribs specifically will expand and contract with each breath. And then also you could kind of see it there too with how my elbows and arms would kind of move out on the inhales and contract in on the exhales. So that's the first two parts of the torso. And then finally for the belly. So we kind of talked about how the diaphragm is supposed to do most of that work. So that means that the belly is supposed to blow up like a balloon with air and then contract on the exhales, letting it all out. So if your belly tends to stay pretty still, you're not really using your diaphragm to breathe. So this is something where sometimes it is easier to notice it reclined, especially if you're not used to breathing into your belly. But I am going to stay seated just so that way I don't have to rearrange the camera. I'd have to pretty much put it on the floor for you to be able to see me on my mat in my teeny tiny kitchen. So when you're ready, if you want to recline, you can. If you want to stay seated, just know that that might make it more challenging if you're not used to it. But what we want to do is allow our hands to rest on our belly. And we want to exhale fully. And on the inhale, expand just the belly with the breath. Wonderful. Exhale it back out. 2 more in and out. 1 more. And out. Wonderful. Now that you've practiced just breathing into the belly, the 3-part breath is going to be combining each of the areas into one full breath and motion. It's kind of almost the way I like to picture it is when starting with the belly, it's like a wave lapping up onto shore from the belly all the way up to the shoulders. And on the exhale, you're letting that wave go back into the ocean. And so on the inhale, it flows up. And on the exhale, it flows down. Also, my AC just kicked on, so that's the noise in the background. You know, I am a hot girly and I keep my house pretty cold. So when you're ready to start practicing the 3-part breath. So I'm going to start by kind of talking through it and not actually doing it myself, and then I'll do it with you a few times before we kind of wrap up this video, because this is just an intro just to kind of talk about how to do it. So when you're ready, you want to take a nice cleansing breath. Letting all that air out. And then when you're ready with your inhale, you're going to start by filling the belly with air. Once it's full, move on to the sides. Once that's full, the chest. And then on the exhale, working backwards, chest, sides, and belly. Continuing to breathe first into the belly, the sides, the chest, and then out, chest, sides, belly. Wonderful. One more with my voice in, sides, chest, and out, sides, belly. Wonderful. All right. Before I do it with you a couple times, I also like to make note that you might find it uncomfortable to like start with the belly, sides, chest, and then work back in the same way, or like in the opposite way, I should say. So if you find it more natural in your body to inhale into the belly, chest, and then shoulders, and then exhale, allowing the belly to contract first, sides, and then chest, that might be something that works better in your body. You know, I don't know if there's an actual rule book on which way it's supposed to be. I have seen it done both ways. My preference is actually to always start with the belly on the inhale and then start with the belly on the exhale. So it's kind of just what works for me and whatever works for you. You know, the more important part is that you're breathing, right? So when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and do this together. So we'll start by taking a cleansing breath. Do 3 breaths together in and out, in and out. One more. Wonderful. Feel free to continue breathing deeply using your 3-part breath, and I look forward to next time. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.